Welcome everybody to Observations in Brass, being the recorded observations made during the conception, design, construction, and it is sincerely hoped the eventual completion of a rolling ball sculpture, commonly and quite incorrectly referred to as a marble roller coaster, hereafter to be known upon its much anticipated and eventual completion as the Perpetual Curiosity Engine No. 1, by me, Liam Ball, the Gentleman Magician. This is observation number 2. This video is all about the frame. Okay, so in this video I'm going to put together the frame of the machine. This is essentially the foundation building blocks that everything else will be built on and connected to. So what do I need to do? Well, I'm going to start with this beautiful piece of mahogany board. Onto that I'm going to take these 4 gorgeous brass feet and attach them here with some reasonably sized bolts and acorn nuts that will show on top. Once I've done that, I need to then take these pieces of brass, which were wonderfully cut and sized for me by a good friend, and turn them into a scaffolding frame, if you will, that will sit on the main base. And then I need to take these pieces of brass and cut them into gussets that will fit on the joints, which will then be soldered and bolted into place to give it a lot of structural integrity. Once that's all done, I need to create some more intricate framework, including some more plates and some of this 4mm brass round bar to give me lots and lots of anchor points, while at the same time not looking like it's overdone. And through all of this, I'm also trying to give it a little bit of a Victorian aesthetic and make it look pretty and wonderful. So hopefully, eventually, when I get to the end of this video, on this board, there won't just be empty space, there will actually be a beautiful architectural structural frame that is going to hold up the whole of the sculpture. And if I get it right, it'll look something a little bit like this CAD drawing. Isn't that exciting? Right, let's get on with it. In fairness, you might be wondering where I'm going to get the space and all of the tools I'll need to build this absolutely marvellous machine. Well, the answer is simple. Welcome to the East Essex Hackspace. For some of the more ambitious parts of this project, I've joined my local Hackspace. Essentially, it's a rather wonderful community workshop for people who like making things. Alongside a fully equipped metal and woodworking shop, there's a 3D printing lab, a laser cutter, a Wazer water jet, electronics and computers labs, and an enormous tool library. And, rather helpfully, there are people who actually know how to use this stuff and how to do what I need to do, which, in my case, is probably just as well. So one of the first jobs that I need to do is to put these beautiful, absolutely gorgeous brass feet onto this baseboard, this mahogany board. Now the board has actually been treated in Danish oil, so it was a piece of beautiful mahogany. It was sanded back, had Danish oil put on top of it, and now what I need to do is corner drill each of these corners with a 10mm hole so that I can put this foot on each corner with a 10mm bolt and then an acorn nut. That's going to be the very first part of the brass and mahogany look that this whole sculpture is going to have. I'm going to use the pillar drill, so let's do that now.
Oh yeah, 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 oh yeah. Hey there, what you drinking? 2 shots, let's pour it out. I know what you're thinking, but tomorrow won't come for us. This life that we're living,
and just like that, I've got holes in my baseboard. Now it's time to add the feet onto these and get the board finished so that we can start building the frame on top of it. Okay, when I got this board, it was a piece of mahogany off of a dining table, so it had like a thick, crusty brown paint on it. So it was sanded off. Of course, all the edges were beautifully filleted and chamfered to make it look nice. But then in order to get it to this state, I've actually added about 20 coats of Danish oil. Now, this is great stuff. You just wipe it on with a cloth, you rub it in, it soaks into the wood. When it's dry, you repeat, you do it over and over again. Last coat it had was about a week, maybe a week and a half ago. So this is now thoroughly dry, everything is soaked in. But just look at the gorgeous wood grain that you get on that. It's just beautiful. I absolutely love it. I am now going to give it one final finish, and it's going to get some of this beeswax. It's going to get a couple of coats of beeswax just rubbed in on top, massaged in, and then I'm going to get the feet on. Let's get it done. One beautiful waxed piece of mahogany with these absolutely gorgeous feet on the sides. This is going to look like an absolutely stunning base for the frame that's going to go on top. That's next. Let's get on with it now. I'm actually going to start here on this machine. This is a Wazer. It is a water cutting machine, and it is going to turn these 3mm pieces of brass into some absolutely gorgeous gusset shapes for the joints on the frame. Check this out. And there we are, hot off the Wazer, the first two gussets are cut. So, working with the Wazer today has been absolutely fantastic. I've managed to cut out all of the corner gussets, all of the T-gussets, all of the 45-degree angle gussets. I also cut some tension plates for the back and the two sides, and I was going to cut two more tension plates for the back just so I can strap something to the bottom of the tension bars I'm going to put in there. But sadly, this has been the outcome. As you can see, I don't know what happened. I think the plate moved in the Wazer. I was doing other stuff at the time, so I missed it. And this has been the result, which is a bit sad, but that's okay. I could probably make these manually as opposed to using the Wazer again. I don't necessarily want to have to go through the whole Wazer thing and do these all over again. So I'm going to call that a massive success. Now it's time just to grind down the edges of these parts, take all the sharp corners off them, and then get them ready for drilling. Let's do that now. So today my focus is going to be on using the pillar drill so that I can drill out the bars which are going to sit on the deck of the board, and then I can bolt through them, but also so that I can take all of the gussets where I've previously center punch them, and then I'm going to drill all the holes in, and then of course I'm going to center punch all the other decorative holes and get those drilled as well. But first off, I'm going to do all of the edge holes. Okay, now that I've got all of my fixing and securing holes drilled into each of the pieces, I've also center punched all of the bits as well, so I know where the decorative holes are going to go. What will happen with those is they will first get pilot drilled like this, and then I will eventually cut them out with a much bigger drill bit so they look really pretty. Let's get on with that job. And we are done as far as the gussets go. So now I've got all the gussets ready. I've got my 6 corner gussets. They look really handsome. I've also got my 4 T-shaped bracket gussets. I've got my 2 45-degree angle gussets. I've also got my central back plate gusset. And then I've got 2 of these, one for the left and one for the right side of the machine. I think it's time to start actually building this frame. Let's go. Okay, so it's nearly time for one of the most exciting parts of this project, when I actually get to start building something. And the first thing, of course, as we're on this video, is I'm building the frame. Now the frame, as I've mentioned before, is made up of 12mm box section of brass. Some of those bits are cut at 45 degrees, others are cut at 22.5 degrees, and 2 of those making a full 90-degree angle, and then others are just going to be butt jointed at various different things. I've got 3 main kinds of joints on this frame. The first of them is going to be this one. This is just going to be a straightforward and simple 90-degree frame, and of course I've got my corner gusset which is going to go in there. Once that's all done, that'll all be soldered together and soldered on, and then of course bolted on. I've also got the T-junction, which will sit like this, and I've got a T-plate to go on there, and then other than that I've got a 45-degree which goes at this a little bit in between, where there's a 45-degree junction plate. So I now need to solder all of those things together, but of course importantly I need to make sure that everything is square. So how am I going to do that? Well, the easiest way is probably to use a soldering jig. Now, whenever I mention a jig of some kind, and I certainly speak to my friends, they often think it's going to be some kind of clever contraption that I've purchased or what have you, but in fact, it's reasonably straightforward. This is going to be my soldering jig. It's just a board of MDF. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to screw these 2 pieces of wood onto the board like so that they are perfectly square. This board is perfectly square. I've already checked that and had it made. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the corner off so I can bolt a piece of frame either side, and I know that where those 2 frames meet, it's going to be perfectly square. And of course, because I'm cutting the corner off the board and the corner off of these, so this whole space will be open, it means that I'm not going to set fire to the board when I'm actually putting it together. And there we go, just like that, I've got my soldering jig done. Now, it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to last forever. I've only got, I think it's 10 or 12 joints that I need to solder like this, but using this now, I can clamp my bars to it, I can get my perfect 90-degree angle, and then of course, on top of that, I can actually solder onto it the corner plates as I need to. Also, if I've got a T-joint, I can add on my T-plates and as and when I've got my 45-degree corners, I can add that on as well. So this is going to be the thing that helps me to start building the frame, putting it all together, and importantly getting those solder joints perfectly square. And I'm really excited to start doing that next. And this is going to be the first joint. There we go, the first soldered joint on the whole frame. Now it's far from finished. As you can see, it's turned a rather, well, unpleasant shade of copper. I want this brass to gleam, but as we saw when I was making the track spacers, and if you're not following me on Instagram, you definitely should, there's some very different content and action shots going up there. All of this will come off simply by giving it a bit of a polish with a brass brush, and suddenly it starts to look a whole lot better once it's had a really good clean. Also, there's plenty of solder sticking around in some of the joints, but again, I can clean all of that off as well. Now, the next step once I've got the frame built is to take these holes here, which are the ones over the frame. I'm going to drill through those, tap them, and then I'm also going to bolt these gussets onto the frame just to give it a real strong mechanical joint. But that's pretty solid. I'm pretty happy with that for a first attempt. Right, tomorrow I'm going to do all the others. So naturally, I didn't just stop here. I went on and did another one because I wanted to see how this frame is going to look when it really starts coming together. And honestly, I couldn't be happier. I also gave this joint a little bit of a clean up. This one, not so much, but I'm not going to worry about cleaning them all until I've got the whole frame built. I just wanted to see what it would look like and give me a better idea. And I think that this is looking really, well, rather a little bit Victorian. So I'm going to crack on now and put the rest of the frame together so that I can actually start seeing what this is going to look like in full. So I thought I'd share with you the actual process of me doing some of the soldering, and you can see there that I'm using the soldering jig that I made. I did have to modify it slightly. You'll see in the bottom right hand corner of the jig I had to take a piece out because otherwise I couldn't fit the frame on. But I also learned early on that using plenty of flux is definitely going to help with the soldering of the brass. That of course on lots of heat, and I use the mole grips there to make sure that nothing moves while I'm soldering it. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is the first time I've ever done anything remotely like this. So I'm very much making it up and learning as I go along, but I'm also wanting to make sure that everything looks as good as it possibly can from the get-go. I know I could probably have used less solder in some areas, I could probably have done a better job of clamping everything together or even using better clamps. I'm really honestly just using what I've got. However, I'm pretty happy with the progress I'm making. Now, one thing that I did do was I made one or two little mistakes along the way. Some of those happened off camera because my camera memory kept filling up and I just couldn't keep up with the volume of video, so I had to stop just after doing this and empty some of the videos off the phone, but then I managed to get back to it. This is probably a great example of a mistake I made where I put the 45-degree plate on. I took all the time in the world to measure it up, make sure it was nice and straight and level, got everything square, did all the soldering, soldered it onto both joints on both sides and managed to do that without melting the middle off, only to then realise that the piece at the very bottom there was the wrong piece, and I had to go back and take that off before I could then put the correct piece back on again. But we live and we learn. I did still manage to use that piece just in the other side. I just realised that I'd made a mistake on which of those pieces needed to go together. Today's job is a reasonably straightforward one. Yesterday I cut a whole bunch of these pieces of 8mm bar on the workshop saw, and today I just need to chamfer the edges off on the top and the bottom. These are going to be the bosses which affix the tension wires to the tension plates in the centre of each side. Now there's 4 pieces on each plate, I've got 3 plates around the machine, and each of them goes to a corner of that side which has another piece on, so there's going to be, well, loads really. Anyway, let's crack on. In order to chamfer the ends off these little bars, I'm going to be using the lathe. It's a reasonably simple operation, so I should be able to whiz through all of the little bars that I've got. So I'm going to get on and do that right now. So rather frustratingly, I got a bit ahead of myself the other day deleting videos, and deleted a whole bunch of videos where I explained the making of these. These are the little, I'm going to call these tension bosses that will ultimately strap the central tension plates and tension wires onto the frame. I've made, well, loads of these. There was a whole 4 minutes of video explaining how I cut them all to length, and then I milled all the ends, and then I cut the slots in, and then I drilled the holes, and I did all of that, and actually I'm quite pleased with how they've come out. Sadly, you're gonna have to take my word for it. There we go. Let's go and get these on and start building the central parts of this frame. Okay, so the next part of this job is to solder some of these bosses onto this here central tension plate so that they sit on the edges like so. Now, there's going to be a couple of things that I'm going to need to do this. Obviously, I need some flux. I've put some of that on there already. I'm also going to need some solder, which I've got plenty of here. But a great tip I got from Andy Davies by the Sea, who's another channel on here. You should definitely go and check out on YouTube. Andy Davies by the Sea said to cut your solder into smaller parts so that you're not using too much, basically. And that's what I've done. I've got a little tiny bit of solder here, which I'm just going to pop on there. Now, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how well it will work, but what I do know is that when I pop this whole thing on here, the solder sort of sits in between the boss and the tension plate that's right there under it. So all I'm now going to do is apply heat right here, and then hopefully get that little thing to drop in place. I've got a little lever here to push it down and move it around if I need to. And the heat source that I'm using, I want it to be quite refined. So I've bought one of these. This is a Dremel Versa Flame. Really great little thing. This canister is actually fully connected. You have to fill it at the bottom. This is all full and ready to go. And what's quite nice is it's got a really refined little point. So I'm going to get on and get this soldered here right now. So let's just do that. That at least gives me the right kind of flame, and let's see what we can do. Now that's already melting quite nicely. This is actually going in quite well. Just waiting for that solder to catch on there. I can see, oh, there we go. It's just gone, and I'm going to take that away. That solder has actually rather nicely filled that whole little area there. That is just, I would say, the perfect amount of solder for the job. So Andy Davies, thanks for the top tip. Right, let's get the others done. Okay, that's the central tension boss made. All of the boss joints are soldered on there. They're all pretty solid. I'm really happy with how easy and simple that was, especially that little bit with the soldering piece. Much, much easier than trying to feed in just the right amount. So absolutely fantastic. Now this thing is going to sit here in the frame, and what I'm then going to do is I'm going to have a 4mm wire that comes out to each of these corner gussets, which here, and on there's going to be another of these tension bosses. So I'm going to try and get all that together, and we'll see how it goes. Let's go. So adding all of these tension bosses into the corners was a reasonably simple operation. All I did was popped a piece of wire in the end and then braced it against the opposite corner to make sure that they were all in effect pointing in the right direction there or thereabouts, and then I was able to get all of the bosses soldered in on the base of the frame. Now once I'd got the bottom two in, I could insert the middle part and make sure that was all there. I didn't really want to have to make too many amendments to the length of the wires once I cut them, so I ended up bending the top wires just slightly, just so they'd fit, and also it gives a little bit of curve to the frame and makes the top opening a little bit wider than the bottom opening, which actually I think is quite nice. Several adjustments and quite a bit of solder later, and the back tension frame is in. Now, of course, this isn't a tension frame. It doesn't serve any structural purpose to the actual frame. All of that is achieved with all of the gussets and the joints and of course the bolts that are going to go into it. But this here just looks like it might be a little bit authentic. And in addition to that, it gives me lots of different points that I can start anchoring things to as I build all of the things that are going to be sat inside this area of the machine. So I'm actually really happy with how that's come out. I had an image in my head as to how it might look, and what I've ended up with is pretty much what I thought it would be. I'm really happy with this. Plenty of cleaning up to do there, plenty of polishing to do with the rest of the frame when all that gets done, but I'm really pleased with that. So I'm going to go straight on now and do the left and right gussets at the same time with all the tension frames in there. So I'm going to mirror this on the right side and the left side, and then once that's done I can clean it, I can polish it, I can fix it to the board, and the frame is finished. Okay, so it's taken me approximately 3 to 4 weeks to get to this stage. I decided what I was going to do. I had all the brass purchased, I cut the parts for the brass, I've cut all of the gussets, I've drilled all of the gussets, I've then soldered the whole frame together, I've inserted into that the internal tension mechanism, and then I've gone ahead and cleaned off all of the excess solder. Now there's still quite a bit of work to do, however, I have a working frame. This is the frame, these are all the sides, and you know what, overall I'm pretty happy with that. I'm really happy with how it looks. I've got those gorgeous detailing on the elements there of the gussets and how they all look. I've got that really beautiful architectural Victorian feel. I've got these tension frames which are actually really quite solid, and they're going to help me to be able to mount all of the different track mountings to, along with using the frame of course as well. And it feels solid before I've even gotten these frame bolts in, which will be arriving in the next couple of weeks. But overall, I've got a frame and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Next steps, I need to clean it all up, properly clean it now, give it a polish, probably a bit of a lacquer, and then I think it's finished. Okay, so in order to get the frame polished, I'm going to be using my super handy Dremel 4000 with this really handy flexible extension hose. This is an absolutely fantastic piece of kit. I bought it years ago when I was making lots of leather items, and essentially it's got a variable speed meter that'll go up to 3,500 revs or 35,000 revs per minute, and as low as 5,000 revs per minute, which is ideal. And I can plug everything into here so I can use it as I need to. Now Dremel are great because they offer lots and lots of different kinds of accessories, and one of the things that I bought is this. This is a buffing and a brazing wheel pack, and it comes with a whole bunch of different attachments in here. Most of them look like this. This one is an 80 to 120 grit buffing and a brazing pack, which comes right up to this one here, which is a 600 to 800 pack. I've got about 15 of each of those, and then I've also got these polishing wheels as well, which I can use a bit of jeweler's rouge on the edge to get them all polished. So I'm going to progressively work my way through these. I'm going to use these more the coarser ones to get all of the scratches off, and then work my way through until the frame itself is gleaming and shining, at which point I shall declare it done. So come with me as we finish this thing and make it look absolutely marvellous. the frame for the Perpetual Curiosity Engine #1 is finished and complete. And what a journey it's been. I can tell you now that when I started this, and I said it before, I had no idea what I was doing. I knew vaguely how to solder. I had a rough idea of what I wanted to begin with, but what I've ended up with is something which I think has surpassed anything I could have possibly imagined. A whole load of brass 12mm box section, some wire, some rather elaborate plates that have gone into various points in the machine, a board, some beautiful feet. I can't convey right now how excited I am to move on to the next stage of this project and this build. But for now, that's the frame. It's done, it's finished, it's complete, and I couldn't be happier.